I waved at you once, but you didn't seem to.
I didn't, but hello.
Hello.
How's your break, everybody?
It was good.
That's good. I asked my students that today, and you know, nobody went anywhere, but they're all just seemed a lot more relaxed and, you know, happy to be back at the same time. Hello.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm not answering. I'm just now having a chance to eat all day, so I'll be muted and without my camera so you guys don't see me eat.
Boy, I didn't see that on the agenda.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello, Tulio. All right, well, it's 5:30, so I think I'll call the meeting to order. And we just bring up the board docs here. So the first item on our agenda for today is to approve the agenda from for today.
I'll move approval.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. All in favor of approving the agenda for today, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries, and thank you. The next item is to approve the minutes from the previous meeting. This is from December 8th. Is there a motion and a second to approve the minutes from December 7th, 2020?
So move.
I'll second.
Wonderful. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Can
Any
I just get
opposed?
clarification on who moved?
Maria.
Maria?
Yeah.
You.
Any opposed? Okay, then the motion carries. And that brings us to our business and action items for today. And the first thing on the agenda then is the discussion of the barriers that we have brought to the table up to this point. So we've had several meetings and we've been really working on kind of trying to figure out what the barriers are. And so that we said for today we would try to identify primary, actually the first item is, I don't want to get ahead of myself, it's just a discussion of those barriers and to kind of brainstorm and Tony and Tulio, I don't know if you guys had a chance to pull something together. If not, we can just brainstorm together now.
No, I didn't. No.
Okay, well, I think we can just brainstorm and just kind of, you know, together think, you know, come up with a list of what the key barriers are and then move from there.
Well, I think one of the things that we've seen as a pretty common theme is technology as a barrier.
Yeah.
That would be probably access to technology as well as familiarity with technology.
Mm-hmm.
So might even be two separate.
Yeah, and I know that you guys are already doing some work in the libraries with that to try to bridge that gap. But I think that's an important one still is technology. And
I think the other one that was brought up was communication
mm-hmm.
with the family.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that we discussed, having the liaisons maybe do some of the communication, and get that communication live through them.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just add with communication, I think it's a lot of the consistency of the communication. I think we're all doing, communication, but just having that consistency throughout the district, I think is really important.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing we talked about too was the sense of English is first and Spanish is an add-on rather than really being bilingual even as a district. It's a mindset.
Yeah, and how Kurt, how did you? I mean, I remember I think that was at the last meeting that we discussed that point, and I guess could you say a little more about that? Like just as far as the way we approach organizing a meeting, are you saying that it would, the default would be bilingual versus English automatically, or how do you see that?
Well, I think so. I mean, it's sort of that. How do I think of it? We had an AFS student from Budapest who stayed with us, and one of the things I remember when we went to visit him is I was shocked that there was no ice in my water when I went to the restaurant, because that's just the way you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so. We kind of have this sense of English is just the norm, but like my roommate in college was from Copenhagen, Denmark, and he spoke 7 languages, and that was just the norm. So why, I think the sense of Spanish is an add-on, but we have so many people in our community, and it is a gift for our students that to begin to think about everything we do. I think we even talked about, hey, maybe one time we have a meeting in English and there's Spanish translation available, but another time we have the meeting in Spanish with English translation available. So it's a mindset that this is not just how do we adapt for people who speak a different language, because it's sort of like, oh, there's a disability they have, rather than saying, oh no, this is a gift. How do we incorporate both as equals?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think it also makes sense in terms of the way we're approaching instruction, with the dual language program for students. And that doesn't really make sense that we would just have, a dominant language for the adults and then a dual language approach for students. So maybe that, that's the best practices that we should be consistent throughout.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of revolutionary, though. I don't know,
Well,
but it's interesting.
This summer, for the BEA is doing organizing for them. I did 130 one-on-one meetings since June with staff. And the one thing that came out a lot, like talking about DLI, was people saying, hey, why don't we have a building that's focused on that, where everything just functions that way, rather than, a little bit in every school. And I think that was, and that's not to criticize the way we've done it, saying we just haven't thought of it that way because, the mindset is always, it's an add-on. But looking at that, how do we make everything saying, hey, it's always a priority because it's always just as important.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'm saying the mindset is maybe the barrier of, we could have everything always just function that way, and there'd be far less issues.
Mm-hmm. And I think
kind of
another,
along,
go ahead.
yeah, along the same lines, it's always, when you want to have a bilingual environment, you need to have people who are actually bilingual to have that. And I'm in a meeting, and so developing our people capital, developing, persons into different facets of our school district to serve the community, serve the students that are able to speak multiple languages.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that goes along with, recruitment, retention, and even developing people as part of the way that we do business. Because we have a lot of, paraprofessionals or even people in the community that are interested in serving as teachers and administrators, but they don't have the resources or the time to dedicate to doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Then with having people in those spots, and it doesn't become an add-on, it does become more integrated into how we do business.
And another point that was brought up earlier in one of the first meetings was, I think, the cultural barrier and maybe having our students take on the role of mentors. I thought that was a good idea that was brought up by one of the students. But just that, how families might not be familiar with, at least newcomers might not know about the SAT, how sports work, different things like that might be a barrier.
So kind of systems, like system support, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and what we had talked about specifically was having students who have been in the system for a while and who are succeeding or who want to be mentors work individually with a newcomer student and then kind of be a mentor or a resource for that person.
So I guess I had another thought thinking, I'm stepping back one moment now, we were talking about bilingual. So I'm thinking, what if we treated this kind of like we do national board certification, right? The district supports people who do this, there's additional pay because you're doing something that helps serve our students better. And what if we made that a priority in the same way we do national board, where there was an incentive to push, encourage people to become bilingual if they aren't already in teaching, or to want to be here if they know that's an incentive because they have that kind of certification.
Yeah, that would be great. What kind of incentive, what kind of, badge do you know of any kind of, would it have to be a degree in Spanish, or would it have to be, completion of a program, or?
I think we'd have to either explore it or maybe even create it.
Yeah.
I would hope there's something already out there, but if not, how might that look?
Yeah. I know that there is, at least in world languages, we have a language proficiency test. It's called the ACTFL exam, and that's something that we could administer to teachers, and if they pass that, then there would be some incentive. That might be interesting.
Something like national board is like 2,000 more a year. The district.
That's really true.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great idea. I can tell you from experience, the county that I work for, there was no incentive whatsoever, for any bilingual staff, and now we have an incentive plan for bilingual staff. Plus, they have a protected status where, if for any reason we have any layoffs, the bilingual staff are like the last ones to go. So, sometimes the incentive doesn't necessarily need to be monetary, but just like more of a protection or, something that will give like job security per se. So I like that idea.
Yeah, because that might at the same time help us to recruit, in the recruitment process. So that seems like a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Would it be worth looking at? I know it's like bilingual certifications if you get the supplemental license. Financially, school districts are, at least they have been, I don't know what the story has been in the last few years, but had been reimbursed a percentage. So in years past, we would be able to get like a reimbursement on salaries and benefits, but it changes every year. It depends on the amount of funds available at the state level.
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea, Rosa Maria, because even if we had a cohort. Imagine if we had a cohort of teachers in the Beloit School District that were had their K through 12 license in something other than bilingual or ESL or whatever thing, and then you could work together to get that bilingual certification. And I know CISA. Whichever CISA group we're in, I know that they just they have something, but also you can just study outside of that and take, isn't that, I don't know, Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, but can't you just take the test and then get that add-on certification?
The language proficiency test?
Well, I think the test to get your bilingual or ESL certificate, it's just an exam that you can take. You can study through, but my understanding is you can just take a test and then
I think there are a lot of add-ons that can be done that way now. I'm not sure if bilingual is one of them or not.
Mm-hmm.
Rosemary, do you know any more about that?
I'd have to look at it. I know that there are several content areas that you can add on if you already have a K-12 license, but I don't know that ESL or bilingual would be one of those. It may be.
Mm-hmm.
Would this be something we could want to work the other way too? Like if you have someone who already is fluent now as bilingual, that we could help support them getting their licensure. Especially thinking about this, what might help create more diversity in the staff, because you have lots of people who, because Spanish is their first language and they have to also try, function with English here. We could create greater staff diversity if we supported those people going into teaching, if they already have the bilingual background.
And we do allocate, the district allocates out of our Title III funds support for that. That's another one of those where we're in the process of developing that relationship with CISA 2 and with UW-Whitewater, and we've had conversations with Beloit College. The struggle that we've had is, we have a fair number of staff that need initial licensure. And so you need to help them get their K-8 license or 1-8 license, and then the add-on license after that. And so that's kind of where that gets a little more complicated. But that is something that we've looked into, and we seem to have clarity from DPI about use of Title III funds to support those efforts. And we have allocated those funds and are in the process of working with UW-Whitewater, like I said, Beloit College CISA 2, to find a way to build that program that, allows us to have a cohort here in town and, kind of enables the district to support those staff and then retain those staff once they do get the license. So that's something that Tanya Williams has been working on. Myself, I've been involved in some of that with Dr. Keyser. So that's something that we are definitely interested in developing over the course of the next year or so.
So, Tony, are you saying helping bilingual staff get initial certification or helping
Both.
people get bilingual or
Yeah,
ESL?
both.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Title III can be used for both, yeah.
It's on this on DCI's website. And it has a list of, if you are certified in these content areas, then you would, through testing, would be able to get one of these other areas. However, with ESL and bilingual, I don't know if people got the ESL and then added on the bilingual methods and the language proficiency, if they would then qualify for a bilingual license. You could look into it.
According to what I'm seeing from the link that you shared, like if you had any of these initial certifications, like, Spanish or anything on the left column, art, then you can just take the test for, it looks like, I don't know if ESL.
It says ESL, but
Oh, okay.
at the state level, the difference between an ESL and then a bilingual add-on license are basically the same coursework that's required, except for the additional bilingual methods course and then the Spanish proficiency, or second language proficiency. It doesn't necessarily have to be Spanish, but it would be for the second language proficiency. It would have to be at a level higher than world languages, is what my understanding is.
Mm-hmm. So then, because since we're still in talking about the barrier aspect, would the barrier be then an incentive for teachers to or recognition of teachers that have, or the feeling of that being valued for their additional skills? Would that be seen as how we could characterize this as a barrier?
I'd say incentivizing bilingualism would be one, and then availability of add-on licensure or initial licensure opportunities.
Okay. And a nice thing to just kind of, I think, keep in mind with these add-on license routes, the newer pathways that they have, is that it's not necessarily like a ton of investment, I think, for the school district, because it would just be, it could be as I think, affordable as simply creating a study group, of teachers who are interested in doing this together. And then as long as you had the same initial, certification, then you would just kind of study together and then take the test. And then from my understanding, you could retake the test, so that you could almost take the test, see where you're at, and then retake the test if you needed to. And so it wouldn't necessarily be a huge ask in terms of investment. But I mean, there could be, and then you could just create an incentive program like Maria said, that could be, it look like anything that we want to propose.
Mm-hmm.
Well, are there any other barriers before we get into the next point, which is to identify which seem to be most urgent and addressable in terms of primary and secondary recommendations? Any other barriers that you want to put on the table?
Do we find not having like all the documents translated into Spanish, like the policies and all of that, is that, I mean, I would assume that that's a barrier too.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think the other thing, and Tony, you mentioned technology, and one of the things that came up when I think our first night was how that some of the issues cross language, like that lots of parents don't understand how the technology works, how Skyward or Google Classroom or Seesaw work, and so that some things might be that we need to have support, but it should be across the board too. I mean but some things are a barrier for everybody. This, you know what I mean? So to make sure that it's a thing that should be implemented across the district too, because other people need it. It's not just a language barrier, but the language barrier should be addressed when that issue is addressed.
Mm-hmm.
So like if parents don't understand Seesaw and we make a video or support for it, we have to make sure that it's done bilingually.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite sure how you list that, but it just seems to be a common concern.
Yeah, I think it sounds like it's language, technical support with all of that, but with special attention to language, possible language.
Maria, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
When you talked about translation of policy, is it translation of policy or is it translation of school documents, or is it both, I guess?
I would say that it's both, but I know that our initial conversation was the translation of, or at least like a summary translated into Spanish for the policy, not necessarily like policy word by word, but maybe just a summary for our Spanish speaker, families, for them to understand what our policy entails. And I think this conversation, came to be for, like, for instance, when we get to do the expulsions and all of that. I mean, there's a lot of legal language. There's a lot of things that entail, making that decision, just like a basic understanding, like a summary of, what it entails, like doing all of that. I think previously when we had this ad hoc, we did talk about the translation of documents and forms and all of that, but I think a lot of that is being done already, with the exception of, the actual, like, policies that we have to follow. And even I think we talked about, the board meetings, and I know that that's been a conversation that we've been having, not just here on this committee, as to, the board meetings are not necessary. I think I talked to Tulio about this before, that the board meetings are not being, translated into Spanish. So a lot of, when the surveys go out, a lot of our parents don't respond to those surveys because they don't even know why we're sending them or what is the point of those if they haven't been listening to, like, board meetings. And a lot of our parents don't listen to the board meetings because they're not in Spanish, they're in English. So it actually adds on to the lack of participation as well. Someone that is not understanding the language, why would they want to bother to participate when, it's not something that is being provided in a way that they can understand?
Yeah, I think that's really important, Maria, because as you bring up, imagine an expulsion, and if your child is up for expulsion and you're having a hard time understanding what's going on or what could happen, or researching, what your options are, and when issues do come up at board meetings, I don't know how comfortable our families would feel making comments at the board meetings, because maybe you feel like, well, I'm not comfortable in English, and I'm not sure if there would be someone there to translate. I mean, all of those, I think, are key barriers, because so much happens. Everything begins like at the board meetings. I think that's key. maybe in general, making the board meetings more accessible, whether that means somehow translating, to our Latino families and Spanish-speaking families, whether that means, having a translator, or is there, Maria, is there somebody there consistently that is available to translate meetings?
We don't have anyone there. But even like just translating like the minutes, of the board meetings and making that accessible in Spanish, that way they can at least read the minutes in their own language without having to actually participate in the meetings. But I mean, something does need to happen to make that availability for our families.
Yeah, and probably the agenda as well, I would think, looking forward, so they know which meetings they need to be at.
Yeah. And I'm sure that that's probably, a job for more than, one person. I remember that when I was running for the board, we did had a session. I think it was a public session for people to comment on issues that were happening at that time. And there was a translator there, but I'm not sure if that was a translator part of the school or if it was, someone that they hired to do that meeting. Because I do remember that there was a translator at that point.
We've done both. Yeah, we've done both.
What connections do we have with La Voz de Beloit? That's supposed to connect with a lot of Spanish-speaking families. I mean, would there be a way to get information to them regularly about what's happened at the school board?
I think we have started to do that. I think I've been seeing, and La Voz only works on Facebook. It's like a Facebook media, news media that, goes through. So it's just, it's only touching portion of our families, not necessarily everyone, but it's still very helpful. I got, I think the survey was sent out to them, and they were able to post it and to explain what that survey was about and encouraging people to answer that. So I thought that was a great technique to take on the surveys to get more Spanish speaking families to complete that survey. So, I mean, I think we already are taking steps on utilizing La Voz more. But there has to be other venues too that, we might be able to use where it doesn't entail using a computer. Because again, one of the barriers is technology.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
I used to translate the school board agenda until they started using Board Doc. I translate for a little while, but then they stopped. So, but we used to do that through, bilingual program.
Michelle, is there still an option for us to be able to upload like a Spanish version and the English version? Would that be a possibility?
I see Michelle probably the one that needs to answer that one.
Yeah, that was for Michelle.
I'm not 100% sure. Because right now what I do, like the agenda, the board reports, the minutes, everything is like all one document. So I would want to do some talking to board docs to see what the easiest way would be to do that, so we're not making it harder for ourselves. Because I don't know off the top of my head. I just want to flip over to board docs quick and see, how sometimes websites translate. And I know that's not always the perfect way to do it, but I'm wondering if that does any automatic translating, or if there's a way that we can turn on like a Spanish feature or something. But I can certainly call board docs and look into that and see if that's something that we can work with and how we can make that happen a little more easily than just duplicating everything. I don't know because to totally translate all of it and do it in a timely fashion, I would basically have to have somebody sitting next to me translating while I'm doing all these reports, and I get reports from everybody. So like before I would post, and we're going to start trying to post on Thursdays, I'd have to have everything into me on Wednesday, and then Thursday morning, I'd have to have somebody dedicated every day, all day long, Thursday and or Friday, to sit and translate everything. Some of the like template stuff could be translated, and I could have a Spanish template that would be set up, and then they could just copy the English reports into the Spanish template and then go through and translate them. But part of me is thinking there's got to be an easier way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I can certainly make some calls to board docs and see, because there's got to be other people that have asked for this. We can't be the only ones that are asking for something like this out of all the people in the country that use board docs.
If you can find out for us, that would be great. You know, and maybe this could be one of our, you know, next, the easiest one to maybe tackle.
Yeah.
If they're able to translate it for us, that would actually be nice.
Right. Okay. I'll make some calls and see what I can find out.
In terms of barriers, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I want to invite you, in case you have anything, Maria or Tulio, if you have anything else to add in terms of any barriers that you have noticed or that stood out to you in our earlier meetings.
I think they mentioned at least the two most important that was about the technology, communication, because in the survey that we did, one of the main issue was they would like to, you know, for the school to communicate them personally by phone. And that was one of the things the bilingual homeschool liaison were doing. And I think there was, people appreciate that, and they were finding a lot of information through those phone calls. I don't remember what was the other thing, though. I tried to find the survey, but I couldn't find the survey that we did. But there were those two things, at least.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, besides the language, you know, the language itself.
And I think that's a good point, Tulio, is, you know, and we've talked about this before, making sure that, I mean, even when we're, you know, writing anything for our families, to make sure that it's we minimize the legalese of education, so to speak, a bit, so that it's, you know, not so jargony, I guess. A lot of that doesn't translate well anyways.
Yeah, we, Maria Severo and I, we translate the superintendent weekly letter, and we try to, you know, even though he doesn't write like, you know, for academic people, but we try to make that easy too, that people will understand that. Mm-hmm. So.
And that's something that is very important when you're able to translate it in a way that, you know, people can actually understand. Sometimes, like the computer translators, they're way too technical. They're not very.
I guess not accurate either.
Yeah, that's true. Yep, we have the same problem with the state letters that we issue. Our state letters are so bad. I think it even creates even more confusion, and for that, more phone calls and, you know, more clarifications. So yeah. Making sure that translations are done in a way that people can actually understand, and a level. I think the level of technicality that the letters are written have a lot of, you know, to do with understanding.
So I had 10 different recommendations that we, or barriers, I guess, that we had been going through. Evelyn, I don't know how you want to break that into, and I don't know how many Michelle maybe had, or Evelyn, or anybody else that was taking notes. If there aren't any more barriers or things that we'd like to propose is the next task to kind of prioritize them? Is that?
Yeah, just to kind of go through and decide what are, how we're thinking about these in terms of primary barriers, and then recommendations that would come out of that. But did you want to go through your list of 10? Just continue.
Sure. Yeah,
that'd be great.
Yep. Okay, so first was technology,
Mm-hmm.
and in providing bilingual support for accessing or engaging with technology. We had consistency of communication. We had bilingual mindset, kind of more of a universal approach to bilingualism across the district. Availability of bilingual staff on site. And that kind of moved into recruitment and retention of bilingual staff, incentivizing bilingualism,
I think with that one, Tony, you could add staff development.
Yeah, the initial add-on licensure or staff development around the cultural relevance and proficiency about like communication to other language audiences, right?
Yes, and also along with we had talked a little bit about how do we not only encourage, but also provide either pathways or resources or things like that for teachers to be able to become bilingual. Okay,
so so incentivizing, and then initial and add-on licensure opportunities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We had bilingual student mentors for newcomers. Systems navigation support. So for things like, and I don't like to use, the expulsion as the example, even registration, right? Or even I need to get a course changed for my student. How do we help them learn to navigate those systems or provide support for navigating those systems? And that's, the liaisons are there for that, but more bilingual staff generally would help with that also. So that's another one. And then I had policy translation, and then that went to the discussion about board docs, and is there an opportunity through board docs for them to show us is there something within the system that would do it for us? And then making Board of Education meetings and the information coming out of those meetings more accessible. So that would be translation, interpreting at meetings, translation of board agenda, board minutes, etc. I think that was the 10 or so that I had.
So I'm just looking at our minutes from last time, and there was one other, I think it's related to communication one. We were talking about the possibility of creating a network of communication with Hispanic leaders, communicating with families. I guess to say that the barrier is that we lack that network of communication.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. Somebody was going to talk.
You.
Okay. Okay. I have a question for the bilingual students mentors. For that one, are we going to, have provide some kind of training for them, for them to know what to do? is this going to be like a volunteer basis, or are they going to gain some credits or some, payments? You understand what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So what will be the incentive, for those ones?
This is a pretty standard strategy that you use for newcomers to pair them with a language buddy. But I think and correct me if I'm wrong, Evelyn or Kurt, are we looking at, is that kind of the context we were talking about, or were we talking about something more robust than that?
Well, I'm not very familiar with the Language Buddies program. Is that is that more of at an elementary level, or where do you...
All the way through intermediate? I would even think at the high school level, if there's a newcomer that comes to a particular grade level, you would typically find a bilingual student that's in that student's house, or that's running through their course, and pair them up in addition to a bilingual paraeducator that may support, just additional layers of support, not just adults though, with students also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've had that. I know at Aldridge with newcomers who only spoke Spanish.
Right.
Students who'd had that similar experience some years before often were the ones helping them.
Mm-hmm.
We had that since I was in high school, so that's a very long time ago.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that
Not that long.
It's long, very long. More than 20 years ago, it's very long.
Well, I think what it came out of a discussion with students in the Latino club were having, and what they were saying is that there are a lot of students that they feel don't know how to do the basic things, like how to join sports, or what the year exam, the exams that we have are, or all the meaning behind those things, or how even advisory or homeroom or all of those things. And so just to but they were very clear that they were wanting some kind of like recognition for that, and Tulio, so it would be something like an academic, I'm not sure it would be like an academic class or something, but at least like an honor course for graduation, as far as, because we also want to put them in a position where they can say that they were a leader or took on a leadership role, because that would help them. But there are I forgot what they're called, but I know they have like the groups that help the freshman students in the
Link
beginning.
Crew.
Link Crew,
Right.
Something like that, where whatever incentives are for the Link Crew leaders, it would be similar, where it's just something that is seen as like a leadership thing that they could put on their resume or their thing when applying to colleges. And but also a lot of the students in Latino Club are very they're very grade motivated, and they want to excel, and so they were especially wanted like some kind of special honor cord as they graduate, to be seen as a particularly like a leader in the Latino community at Beloit Memorial, which for them they felt like was something meaningful to work for.
Okay.
And maybe that's an option that we build into the seal of biliteracy as far as some of their service opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
That's a kind of a standing cadre of student leaders that would support those kids as a part of their seal of biliteracy projects.
Mm-hmm.
Could this even be a way we differentiate within Link Crew? Like they're helping freshmen, but we have a group within Link Crew who help those whose primary language is Spanish?
Yep, and we've reached out to Mr. DeCoke about that in the past, and he's been very clear to us that they make sure that they have bilingual students as Link Crew leaders for that purpose exactly. So he was actually ahead of us when we went to him saying, hey, you should. He's like, yeah, we've been there, done that. So that was
Andre.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I had another thought. So as I'm listening, and we're talking a lot about how we're servicing our families, but as far as also developing our families and supporting the programs that we have in place, like Even Start, and that's been in our district for a very long time, and it's shown to be effective. And as far as our families learning, the parents learning English and the students getting ahead of their academics and doing very well. But I don't know if that's something that we would need to include or consider on how do we continue to support that. So I know that's a partnership that we have with Black Hawk and continuing to just be very supportive of them.
I think that's a great idea. And I know Rochelle is with some of the 4K work and some other things that they're exploring. There could be a lot of additional layers of opportunity and support for those families. So that's a great idea. How do we expand even start?
And Tony, it just came to mind some of the work that you started doing before the pandemic started, but the plans that you had for last summer, where you were going to have, you were trying to organize a Latino, almost like a festival in the summer. Because I think that's something that is helpful because, as we're talking about the bilingual culture of the school, it seems like it would be helpful to have some kind of informal reunion where we're not just, trying to reach out through technology or even phone calls, but, hopefully we'll be past the pandemic, at some point and then be able to, have some kind of event like that in the summer, where, we could enjoy food or music and, have that be.
And that's something else that we're able to use Title III funds for, is to support that at the school level. To make sure that the schools have resources targeted to engaging, those families in activities at the school site, and not just, educational, but also community building. But that was our intent, was to have one or two huge community-wide events every year to, develop that sense of community and familiarity. So that's, once things settle down, that's something definitely that we'll get back to. Tula's already got it pretty much planned, so.
Oh, good.
That's a great idea, because I think that, are we doing anything for Martin Luther King Day? Because I know that at one point the school district was the one that was pretty much organizing the event for Martin Luther King Day. So it would be kind of like something similar if you were to do like a festival or whatever. It would, bring out our Hispanic culture to play. I think Aldrich was doing something like that every year. I remember participating in that, and it was a very well attended. And I think even participation from parents was very high for that event that Aldrich was doing. So I don't know if something similar like that, that could happen, even if it's like an individual school or the district as a whole. I think it would be something that, would really mean and recognize, that we have a strong Hispanic community.
Well, and to partner with the city, because that was our intent also, was to partner with the city and give the city the opportunity to, express that love and affection for that community as well. So those partnerships are important when you do those kinds of things.
So I'm wondering if we feel like we've created our list of barriers. Do we have a process we want to look at for how we decide which are most urgent?
Yeah, I think that's a good segue because that is our next our next item on the agenda. And so to begin looking at which are primary and secondary, which would be primary and secondary recommendations and how we're thinking about these. And
like, I'm wondering, I know we've done this for some of our leadership. Tony, you have written down if there's a way we could put them on, on a doc so we could all see them, and maybe each person pick the top 3 or 4 or something like that, some way of weighing them. Then when we all share, we can see which ones seem to be the most common high priorities.
Evelyn, I'm wondering if I could do, was just thinking about trying to do a poll real quick, but I think only the host can do a poll.
Oh, that's a great idea, though. Yeah, I'm happy to. Oh, I'm not the host, though. Is Michelle the host?
Michelle's the host, isn't she? Or is Dean?
We could also write in the chat, I think
I'm the host. I might be able to do it, but I'm not sure exactly how to do a poll within the meeting. I mean, I can do, like, I could drop the 10 things that were listed into a Google form quick, and then people could just go, number their preference. You could put your initials across the top and then just go down the 10 and number like X your top 3 or something. Do you want me to do that quick?
Sure.
Okay.
So I should have been typing my notes instead of handwriting them. Is that what you're trying to say, Michelle?
No,
I come into the 21st century.
Hey,
when Maria,
Maria said 20 years. How about 30 years? I think I'd get a pencil excuse once in a while. Okay.
If you're 30 years, don't tell anybody how many years.
Yeah,
He's still living in 1986.
Oh, brother.
And also the way I've been kind of thinking through some of these is almost like there's an umbrella, which seems, and this is my thinking while Michelle's writing those up, but it almost seems like we had 2 overarching themes, which were communication, and around that there were a lot of things like technology and supports but another big one was the one that Kurt brought up, which seemed to be the bilingual culture of the school. And then around that, there were a lot of different, from incentivizing teacher programs to recruitment, retention, bilingual, the mentor program, and just, policy and the board, having the board docs and having accessible meetings, availability of staff, and, the type of festival outreach. So it might be, I'm just saying that now just in case I don't want to lock everybody into like having to number things and leaving things out. But I mean, I think it's a start, at least to start. But there might also be umbrella things that,
Okay, so I am going to just tell you that number 4 is really part of number 3. Like line 4 is part of number 3. So it looks like there's 11 things, but there's still really only 10. They're numbered, because that's the way they were in my notes. And I don't know if they're exactly the way you guys were envisioning them. So if you need something changed, let me know. But this is the way I had them in the minutes tonight. And so let me just get this shared with everybody quick.
Are you sharing in the chat or via email, Michelle?
I'm sharing it. Yeah, it'll probably come to you via email. Can I share it in the chat? I should be able to share it in the chat too, right?
Yeah, the Google Doc, you should be able to share in the chat.
Okay. Well, I'm going to share it in the email because then everybody in the group would be able to get it. Everybody on the committee will get it. But then I will grab the link and I will share the link. I don't do this kind of stuff that often. Not without
I got it.
And there's the link. That. You can just click on that and get to it. And then I will pop back in here and then let me insert a row at the top quick. Yeah. So then if you each just put like your first name or your initial, or because we have 3 Marias, you might want to put a first name, last initial or something, and then just, like put an X for your top 3 or 4, or how many ever, Evelyn, you said you wanted them to pick for their top ones.
Michelle, I asked for access.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have access.
You're not on your, are you on your district account? You must not be.
Well, right now I'm on my private one, but
Yeah. Okay.
I changed it over to my district account.
Yeah. So let me get to my email so I can give you access.
Can you repeat what you said in the last 20 seconds? I had an interruption.
I think just to mark, three items that,
ABC or 1, 2, 3?
either way, I don't know. I'm just going to use an X,
Okay.
Did that work?
I see it.
Rosa Maria,
Oh, let me see.
have you access yet?
Let me.
Oh, nope, it's still, hang on. It's still popping up. Now you should have access.
Okay. There it is. Thanks.
Yep.
I'm putting names across the top, so if I...
Oh, great.
Yeah, Kurt, you can't have 2 rows or 2 columns.
Yeah.
You don't get 2 votes, Kurt.
Are we doing top 3, top 4? Did we decide?
We didn't really. I think maybe 3, and then just try to be very, but I don't know. What does everybody else think? You think? Any ideas? One thing, Michelle, is I'm looking at number 6. I'm not sure it makes really a difference at this point, but the bilingual, I think we can add ESL because it's a different certification depending on what, if we had bilingual and ESL, it opens up a lot more people that have the ability to get that, because bilingual certification it's harder to get that, like you have to have K through 12 or something, but if you have 6 through 12, then I think you can go for ESL.
Okay.
I looked it up, Evelyn, and I closed that tab, but you can get it at any level. So if you're certified elementary, it's K9. I don't know what that's from a while back, but so it's at different levels. But I'll look for it again and put it in the chat.
Yeah, because I think what we really mean there is just having because even doing that work together where we would look and see exactly what are the rules, because it's even just creating the opportunity I think might mean just like helping a teacher navigate all of that, because otherwise you're just on your own trying to figure out which certification you can get, but just creating those opportunities I think would go a long way. All right, let me mark mine here.
This is hard. I just want to select all of them.
I know.
Like, I can't choose.
Yeah, to just do 3 is tough.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if maybe just numbering them, like priority. No.
Yeah, maybe that would help. We could try numbering them, because I'm finding the same thing where it's very difficult to choose what, maybe we could make number 1 be a top priority, the highest priority, if you could only do one thing, and try to number 1, 2, and 3.
But won't we do like a tally and see how many?
Right. So maybe a 3 would be the highest priority, or?
Well, if everybody thinks number 7, for instance, is a priority, then that would be a priority whether it had a 1, 2, 3. But that's what we're seeing is like you got some ones and twos. 'Cause like the column K should be total, right?
I'm not seeing any numbers. I just see X's. Is that?
I think you're talking about the number of X's in each line.
Right.
Oh, okay. Got it.
I mean, I think we're seeing a priority that's coming out.
Right.
There's a message that's coming in from Kristen Moore.
Yep, I just saw it.
Okay, good.
Now look at the
These
access.
cartridges, just some.
She has editor access, so I don't know why she can't do that, but I can go in and mark them for her.
Thank you. I'm doing this meeting on my phone, and I don't think I have the right app installed for that,
Yeah.
for whatever you're
Okay.
using.
Yep, that could be. Okay. So those are the 4 that you want marked.
Yes, please.
Okay. Make sure I'm on the right lines. If you want to just double check me, Kristen, and make sure I marked the right ones for you. I think I did.
I'm sorry, I just see X. Are we doing X or numbers?
X.
X? Okay.
Yeah. And then we're totaling them up. And
Oh, okay.
are you doing that, Michelle, or did you like apply a formula or?
I didn't do a formula because they're X's, so we can just add them up across or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to give time for the rest of the ad hoc committee members to fill this out, or?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Well, I mean, we could do that, but then that makes it so we can't do. It might be a good idea to give them time, since this, considering it's 6:36, and then maybe move. That would mean we would move our next agenda item to the next meeting, which would be to create a list of primary and secondary recommendations and then propose something to the board. That's how it is the whole meeting, I think, in itself.
Yeah, I think that would be beneficial to get everybody's input and then make sure to just tackle it in that one meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, that could be our next one.
So Michelle, can you assign or share this? So is this Google Sheet shared with everybody?
Yeah, I shared it with everybody, but I can email everybody and just say that
Yeah.
they should go in and pick their top 3 or 4 primary. You know, like these have been the ones identified by the committee as the committee's been working. And so from this list, they should put an X on the 3 or 4 items that they feel are their most highest priorities
So
for things to be tackled first.
should we add more columns then with their names, or?
I can do that.
Okay, all right. I just added 2 for you.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
I think we lost Evelyn.
Uh-oh.
He's in charge.
Who's
Would
her
it be
back?
all right if we
He's back.
Control the first column so that you can scroll and see your name and the first column at the same time for people who add.
Yeah, I can try and do that. Freeze it so that, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I got it for you.
Okay, thanks.
So one other thing, I'm not sure if you already said it, but just to be clear, do you want to do 4? Because we want to make sure everybody has the same voice. So should we just do 4?
Sure.
Up to 4? Okay. All right. Just to make it clear. Because it is very hard to decide. So.
Okay.
All right. And then, and at least I think that this, maybe there will still be some things that we want to put into like an umbrella thing, but maybe we'll be able to make it more clear what our recommendations to the board would be. And then, so does it make sense then to have that be the focus of our following meeting, is just come up with exactly, or at least start to kind of come up with the list of things that we want to propose? It's in terms of secondary and primary and secondary recommendations.
I think that's a great idea. I loved how you kind of put these in maybe 2 buckets. I think that would help with the recommendations to the board to, put them in between communication and I think what Kurt referenced as far as the bilingual culture of the district.
Mm-hmm.
So I think once we get input from the rest of the team, I think it'd be pretty easy to kind of categorize them a little bit.
Yeah.
Just to make sure, we're selecting 4 options.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Out of the list? Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing too, Tony, because when we do present it to the board, we want them not just to get the list, but also kind of what our thinking, to be able to see our thinking behind it, and kind of the narrative of like we feel like, like Kurt said, that there's a lack of that bilingual culture, and then and it just makes more sense because then you can see like our thinking around, it kind of ties together all the other things, or communication and all the things around that. Yeah. Okay, so then I think that moves us. So then I think what we need to do is make a motion and a second to table our business action item 2C, which is to create a list of primary and secondary recommendations for presentation to the Board of Education until our next meeting.
I'll move that.
Okay, and then is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, then the motion carries, and so we will table that until the next meeting.
Who seconded?
Rosa Maria.
Thank you.
So this is to give time then for the others on the committee to give their input so we can begin to prioritize.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, and then really begin to really come up with the actual presentation that we, or proposal to the board. So just to kind of make sure we're still moving forward. So that brings us then to our meeting closing and the future meeting date and time, which I think we have set, except that Megan Miller asked me she said that to ask the group about potentially changing the day because she has a new conflict that is going to be prohibit her from participating in our Monday meetings. And so she wondered if another meeting night might be possible, for example, like a Wednesday, she had said. So I don't know if there's discussion around that. Would a Wednesday work for folks, or does that not work for other people?
How many more meetings left do we have?
What's that, Julio?
How many more meetings left do we have, approximately?
Well, I mean, I think, at least a couple. because, it may be 2 or 3, at least with the ad hoc committee the way we have it now, because we still need to, come up with recommendations and then plan a proposal to the board. But, I would say 2 or 3.
I'm fine with Wednesdays.
Okay. Anyone else that can't do Wednesdays or anything?
For me, as long as it's not the third Wednesday of the month, I should be fine with Wednesday.
That's the same Wednesday I have bad, so perfect. Do you want to just go to the first Wednesday since we've been doing the first Monday?
Yeah.
Starting next month, though.
Yeah. That would be great.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, that works for me too. And all right, so so then our next meeting date and time. I don't know if we need to have a motion for that. Michelle, do you know if we need to have a motion in a second for that?
No, do not.
Okay, all right. So then the future agenda items we discussed would be just really the point C, to create a list of primary and secondary recommendations for presentation to the Board of Education. And this month will allow time for everybody to add in and think through. And so then I think that brings us to adjournment. And unless there's anyone else that has a discussion or anything else.
About anything else? Yeah, it's a quick information.
Okay.
On the 19th from 5 to 6, we have Mr. Kyle Larson, the president of the school board, Maria Delgado, a member. They are going to speak. We are going to have like a presentation in Spanish, and that will be based on the decision that they will make on the 14th about returning to school in person. So the 19th, they are going to talk about that meeting in Spanish, or about that decision.
And Tulio, are you going to be sending that information so that we can?
Yeah, we will. Tomorrow, I will be meeting with Maria to create a flyer, and the link we're going to do through Zoom.
Okay.
And then after that, we will start sending to La Voz de Beloit, Skyward, and the school district's main page where we'll be posting that. So.
All right. Anything else for the good of the cause that anyone wants to bring to the table?
I only see 3 on the list from you, Evelyn. You might want to make sure your 4th one gets recorded.
Fourth?
You gave us all 4 X's now.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to go back to that. Yeah. I thank you, Kurt. All right. Well, in that case, is there anyone who would make a motion and then we would need a second in order to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Happy New Year, everybody. Say bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Adios.
Hasta luego.